Introduction. Friends, if you are excited to watch the super-hit action-packed movie Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning in English, then make sure to like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss out on the latest updates. In today's video, we are going to dive into Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. We'll cover everything you want to know, what this movie is about, where you can watch it, and all the thrilling facts surrounding this latest chapter in the iconic franchise. I'm going to tell you which OTT platform or satellite channel will feature this movie. Plus, we'll explore details about the technical crew, the incredible music, pre-production secrets, filming locations, post-production highlights, the budget, and even the box office collection. We'll also break down the story, give you a brief review, and discuss the fascinating facts behind the film. We'll talk about the full storyline, the star-studded cast, the actors' performances, and which actor is playing which role. That's why I invite you, my friends, to watch this video until the very end. You won't want to miss a thing. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Plot and narrative. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright friends, buckle up, because Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning is not just another spy thriller. It's a wild roller coaster of deception, loyalty, and impossible stakes. The story grabs you by the collar in the very first scene, and doesn't let go until the last second ticks off the countdown clock. We kick things off with a bang, quite literally. A covert mission in Eastern Europe goes sideways, revealing a shadow organization even Ethan Hunt didn't see coming. This isn't your usual rogue agent or war criminal. This is the Reckoner, a faceless entity using AI to predict and dismantle global intelligence networks. Creepy, right? Even the IMF is compromised. And just when you think this is going to be a standard chase the villain plot, the film does something bold. We jump back and forth in time, not in a confusing way, but in a thrilling, mind-bending way. Flashbacks aren't just filler here. They give us new layers to Ethan's past, tying events from the very first Mission Impossible movie to this final reckoning. Secrets buried for decades are unearthed. People thought to be dead? Maybe not. Trust no one. There's a brilliant sequence where the narrative shifts perspectives entirely. We see one mission from 3 different characters' viewpoints. The same event, completely different motives. It messes with your head and keeps you guessing who's really pulling the strings. Now let's talk turning points. The first big twist. One of Ethan's closest allies, someone we've known for years, turns out to be feeding information to the enemy. The betrayal hits hard, not just emotionally but strategically. Everything the team thought they knew collapses. Cue an intense mid-film fallout and regrouping phase that feels like the lowest point ever for the IMF. But wait, there's more. Remember those infamous face masks? They're back, but now with a twist. The villain uses them too. So you don't just question who you can trust. You don't even know who's in the room anymore. There's one jaw-dropping moment where Ethan confronts the villain, only to find he's been talking to himself. It's psychological warfare at its finest. Emotionally, this is the most human Ethan Hunt has ever been. The narrative pulls you into his internal conflict. Is the mission still worth it? Has the cost been too high? We see the toll of being the man who always runs, always sacrifices, always carries the weight. The final third of the film is both action-packed and soul-searching. And oh, the finale. A ticking doomsday clock, a remote mountain fortress, a blizzard storm. It's classic Mission Impossible on steroids. The emotional payoff is huge, but it doesn't handhold. It makes you feel the stakes, the weight of history, the end of a legend. So no, this story doesn't follow a straight line. It loops, twists, folds in on itself, and then explodes. But that's what makes it such a thrill. Every scene is a puzzle piece, and when they finally lock into place, you get a story that's not just action. It's legacy, it's loss, it's redemption. Want a breakdown of the characters, and who plays whom next? Character development. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright friends, let's dive deep into the beating heart of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, the characters. Because let's be honest, we don't just come for the explosions and insane stunts, though those are amazing. We come for the people behind the masks, the betrayals, and the sacrifices. And this movie gives us a lot to chew on. First up, Ethan Hunt. Oh boy, Ethan has never been this layered before. For years, he's been the unstoppable agent, the guy who pulls off the impossible without blinking. But here, we see the cracks. Ethan is older, wearier, carrying the ghosts of every mission that's ever gone wrong. There's a real tension in his arc. Does he still believe in the mission, or has the mission consumed everything that made him him? You feel the weight of his past decisions in every glance, every hesitation. He's still leaping off cliffs and clinging to helicopters. But you also see the man who's asking himself, what have I sacrificed to save the world? Now Ilsa Faust, she's back and as sharp as ever. But she's not just the icy operative we've seen before. Ilsa's arc is all about trust and loyalty. She's been on both sides, working with Ethan, sometimes against him. And in this film, she's forced to confront where she truly stands. One of the most fascinating dynamics is between her and Ethan. Their relationship simmers with unspoken feelings, unresolved tension, and a mutual understanding that the mission always comes first. But maybe, just maybe, that's starting to change. Let's not forget Benji Dunn. Benji has always been the tech genius and comic relief. But here, he's more than just the guy behind the computer screen. We see Benji in real danger, making life or death decisions, questioning whether he's cut out for the field. There's a particularly gut-wrenching moment when Benji faces the consequences of one of his mistakes. And it hits hard. His loyalty to Ethan is unshakable, but you can tell he's reaching his breaking point. Luther Stickle, the old-school hacker and Ethan's longest-running ally, brings a grounded wisdom to the team. He's the moral compass, the voice reminding Ethan what's worth fighting for. There's a beautiful scene where Luther confronts Ethan, basically saying, you can't save the world if you lose yourself in the process. It's one of those quiet, powerful moments that stays with you. Now the villain, the Reckoner, is fascinating because they're not just some cartoonish bad guy. They're a system, an AI-driven force using human pawns to dismantle the intelligence world piece by piece. But here's the kicker. The human face behind the Reckoner turns out to have a personal connection to Ethan's past. Without spoiling too much, let's just say this revelation forces Ethan to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about his career, his choices, and the cost of loyalty. And the relationships, oh, they shape everything. The tension between trust and betrayal runs through every interaction. Who can Ethan rely on? Who's secretly working against him? The film uses these dynamics to twist the plot into knots. One moment you're cheering for a reunion, the next you're gasping at a betrayal. And because the characters are so well developed, each twist hurts. Importantly, these characters aren't static. They change, they grow, they ache. By the final act, everyone, Ethan, Ilsa, Benji, Luther, is pushed to their emotional limits. They're not the same people they were at the start. And that's what makes the action hit so much harder. It's not just stunts and gadgets. It's people you care about, risking everything. Want me to break down the most powerful emotional moments or betrayals in the story next? Performances, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Okay friends, let's talk performances, and not just the run, jump, shoot kind. We're talking acting, and in Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, the cast is firing on all cylinders. This isn't just Tom Cruise hanging from helicopters. Though yes, he does that too. This is a masterclass in high-stakes emotion, tension, and character chemistry that actually feels real. Let's start with the legend himself, Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. You've seen him save the world a dozen times, but this time, he's not just the fearless spy. He's the broken, burdened man behind the mission. Cruise owns this version of Ethan like never before. There's a moment, no spoilers, where he's alone, not speaking, just staring at the aftermath of a mission gone wrong. And the pain in his eyes tells you everything. You forget you're watching Tom Cruise. You believe you're watching a man wrestling with ghosts. His performance is raw, restrained, and yet still explosive when it needs to be. Now let's talk about Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa Faust. Wow, she absolutely commands the screen. Ilsa's always been a mystery, a force of cool, calculated energy. But in this film, Ferguson peels back the layers. There's vulnerability under that steely confidence. In one scene, A standoff between her and Ethan becomes an emotional minefield, and Ferguson doesn't blink. She plays it with eyes that say 100 things without saying a word. She doesn't just play the role, she lives in it. Simon Pegg as Benji Dunn brings more than just comic timing this time around. He gets some truly emotional beats, ones that will leave you clenching your teeth and silently hoping he makes it out alive. Pegg's performance takes Benji from the lovable tech guy to a real emotional anchor. He's still funny, yes, but now you feel the stakes behind every joke. There's a scene where he's desperately trying to disarm something with the clock ticking, and his panic feels so real, you start holding your breath with him. Ving Rhames as Luther Stickle is the soul of the film. Luther's always been the dependable one, but Rhames gives him a gentle wisdom here, like a tired but loyal mentor who's seen too much. His chemistry with Cruz? Still rock solid. There's one dialogue-heavy moment between them, quiet and reflective, and it feels like a conversation two brothers might have before the world ends. Rhames doesn't go big, he goes deep, and it hits hard. Now let's get into the new faces. And one in particular steals every frame they're in. The actor playing the Reckoner's human face, not revealing the name just yet, because that's a twist of its own, is absolutely chilling. Cold, calculated, but also weirdly charismatic. You don't just hate the villain, you're fascinated by them. They deliver lines with that eerie calm that makes you feel like they're always 2 steps ahead. Their presence elevates every scene, making you lean in just a little closer because you know something devastating is coming. Supporting cast, rock solid. There's a new operative introduced into the IMF squad. Young, bold, thinks he's invincible, and he brings this fresh energy that plays well against the older, wearier veterans. His arc adds tension and a few surprises, and the actor gives it just enough cocky charm to make you root for him and worry about him. What makes the performances shine is the balance. No one's trying to steal the spotlight. They build each other up. The chemistry is electric, especially in high-tension scenes where 3 characters are all working different angles of the same plan. You feel the trust, the fear, the unspoken histories. Even the silences are charged. These aren't just performances in a popcorn blockbuster. These are commitments. This cast didn't just show up to say cool lines and run from explosions. They showed up to give these characters depth, history, and heart. Want me to break down one of the most powerful scenes and explain what made the acting so unforgettable? Direction: Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright friends, now we get to the real puppet master behind this adrenaline-fueled ride, the director. Because let's be clear, in a franchise this big, it's not enough to just point the camera at Tom Cruise and say, "Go jump off that building." The director shapes everything: the mood, the tension, the pacing, the emotional undercurrent. And in Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, the director doesn't just steer the ship, they rocket launch it straight into cinematic orbit. From the first frame, you can feel the director's fingerprints all over this movie. The tone is sharp, sleek, but heavy with weight. It's not a light-hearted caper. It's not just another action thriller. It's darker, more introspective, and yet somehow more explosive at the same time. Every shot hums with a sense of finality, like we're witnessing the end of something epic. And the director knows it. Let's talk about pacing. Friends, the pacing here is a work of art. Just when you think you're catching your breath after an intense action sequence, bam! The narrative shifts gears and drops you into a simmering emotional confrontation or a tense, whisper-filled exchange in a shadowy corridor. The director balances breakneck speed with moments of stillness, letting the characters breathe and the audience feel. The result? You're not just watching stunts, you're glued to the emotional stakes. Now, shot composition. Oh, there are some absolutely stunning choices here. You know those trademark Mission Impossible set pieces, the ones that make you go, how on earth did they even film that? Yeah, they're here, but they're elevated. The director plays with perspective, using tight, claustrophobic framing when the characters are cornered or psychologically trapped, then shifting to sweeping, wide-angle shots when they face the vastness of the world. A visual reminder of how small they are against the global forces they're battling. One standout sequence, a dizzying rooftop chase filmed almost entirely in long takes, with the camera weaving between characters at breakneck speed. No choppy edits, no flashy tricks, just raw, continuous action. You feel like you're running with them, dodging bullets, leaping across gaps, and gasping for air. It's immersive, and it's all thanks to the director's steady hand and bold vision. Another brilliant touch. The director experiments with light and shadow like a painter. Important revelations happen not under spotlights but in dim, half-lit rooms, where faces are half hidden, and truths are only partly revealed. There's a deliberate use of color, too. Icy blues and cold grays dominate the villain's world, while the IMF's moments of connection and vulnerability are often bathed in warmer, golden tones. It's subtle, but it shapes how you feel scene to scene without even realizing it. And the mood, oh the mood! The director creates an atmosphere of mounting dread, where even victories feel temporary. You're constantly aware that this is the final reckoning, and the tension hangs over every conversation, every choice, every close-up on Ethan Hunt's weathered face. There's a deep emotional undercurrent here, crafted not just through dialogue, but through how scenes are framed, paced, and layered. But maybe the boldest choice, the director leans into nonlinear storytelling. Instead of serving you the plot on a silver platter, they make you work for it, pulling you back in time, shifting perspectives, making you question what's real and what's a setup. It's risky, but it pays off, because when the pieces click together, the impact is massive. So yes, this isn't just a movie that moves, it's a movie that thinks. And that's all thanks to a director who isn't afraid to mix blockbuster spectacle with cinematic artistry. Want me to break down the most visually stunning sequence and explain how the director pulled it off? Cinematography: Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning 2025. Alright friends, let's crank up the focus on one of the most thrilling parts of this film, the cinematography. Because let me tell you, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning is not just a bunch of action scenes stitched together. It's a visual feast. The way the camera moves, the way the light hits the characters, the way the shots are framed, all of it works together to pull you deeper and deeper into the world of Ethan Hunt. First off, the camera angles, they're a key player here. You've got the classic wide shots of Ethan sprinting across rooftops. Sure. But what makes this film stand out is how it constantly shifts perspective to heighten tension. In quiet, emotional scenes, the camera moves in tight, often framing faces in close-up so you can see every flicker of doubt, every spark of determination. It makes you feel like you're right there in the room, breathing the same charged air. But the second the action explodes, boom, the camera pulls back, sweeping across massive landscapes, dizzying heights, and impossible angles. There's one jaw-dropping sequence where Ethan clings to the underside of a helicopter as it hurtles over a frozen ravine. The camera swings beneath him, tracking his every desperate movement from below. Your stomach drops watching it. The sense of scale, of just how tiny Ethan is against the massive backdrop, drives home the sheer impossibility of the moment. That's the cinematography doing more than just looking cool. It's amplifying the stakes. Lighting is another masterstroke here. This movie plays a lot with shadows, with half-lit rooms where faces are partially obscured, forcing you to question who's telling the truth and who's hiding something. The villain's lair? Bathed in cold metallic blues, giving it this soulless, calculating vibe. Meanwhile, the IMF team's safehouse scenes glow with warm, golden tones, a visual contrast that quietly reminds you where the human heart of the story lies. And then, when the action heats up, the lighting shifts dramatically. Explosions don't just fill the screen with fire. They throw sharp, chaotic shadows across walls and characters, making everything feel unstable, dangerous, unpredictable. There's even a scene set in a blizzard, where the whiteout conditions turn the entire frame into a ghostly swirl of light and motion. You can barely see what's coming. And that's the point. The cinematography puts you right inside the confusion, the fear, the pulse-pounding urgency. Framing is where things get really interesting. This film loves playing with reflections, mirrors, and doubles. There's a brilliant cat-and-mouse scene in a mirrored hall, where you can't tell who's real and who's just a reflection. And the camera relishes every confusing, shimmering shot. It's not just flashy, it's thematically rich, underlining the film's constant dance between appearance and reality, trust and betrayal. And oh, the visually striking moments, they're everywhere. One unforgettable image? Ethan standing on a snowy cliff edge at sunrise, the wind whipping his hair, the sun breaking through clouds behind him. It's not just pretty, it's symbolic, capturing the loneliness and determination of a man who's always on the edge, always about to leap into the unknown. Another standout, a slow-motion underwater fight, lit only by flickering emergency lights. The camera drifts weightlessly with the characters, every bubble and ripple caught in crystalline detail. You feel the suffocating tension, the desperate struggle for air, the ticking clock. But here's the best part, the cinematography never feels show-offy. It's not just pretty for pretty's sake. Every choice, every shot, every light, every angle serves the story, building atmosphere, tension, beauty, and sometimes even heartbreak. Want me to walk you through one of the most iconic sequences shot by shot? Just say the word. Editing and pacing. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright, buckle up, friends. Let's pull back the curtain on one of the most invisible but absolutely crucial parts of this wild ride. The editing and pacing. You might not see the editing in the same flashy way you notice the stunts or the dialogue, but trust me, it's the stitching that holds the entire adrenaline-drenched tapestry together. And in The Final Reckoning, the editing is not just sharp, it's a razor blade slicing through the tension, keeping you hooked at the edge of your seat from start to finish. First off, the flow. Oh, it's tight. The film never overstays its welcome in one place. It knows exactly how long to let a moment linger, how long to keep you sweating in a tense conversation before yanking you into the next nail-biting action set piece. The editors here have mastered the art of the seamless transition. Picture this. Ethan Hunt's face fills the screen as he stares down an impossible decision. Cut. And suddenly we're in a roaring car chase, tires screeching, sirens wailing. But here's the trick. The emotional tension carries over. It's not just a jarring switch. It flows, and you stay emotionally locked in. And oh, the rhythm. This film dances between breakneck speed and slow burn tension, like a master conductor leading an orchestra. When the action kicks off, the cuts come fast, snapping from angle to angle with surgical precision. You're not just watching a chase. You feel the panic, the urgency, the chaos, because the editing puts you right inside the swirl. But when the emotional beats hit, the pace slows down, the camera lingers on a character's face, lets the silence stretch, lets you sit with the weight of what just happened. It's this rise and fall pattern, a constant tension and release, that keeps you fully engaged. Now let's talk about montage work, and there are some stunning examples here. One sequence intercuts between three parallel missions. Ethan breaking into a high-security server room, Benji racing against a ticking clock to decrypt data, and Ilsa navigating a deadly trap on the other side of the world. The editing weaves these threads together so perfectly, the tension builds across all three plots simultaneously, peaking in this massive collective gasp moment, where everything seems to collapse at once. It's not chaotic, it's choreographed chaos, controlled, deliberate, and thrilling. But wait, does the pacing ever drag? Not really. But it does intentionally slow in certain sections, and that's actually part of the brilliance. In the middle of the film, after a huge loss, the tempo dials back. We get longer, more reflective scenes where characters grapple with grief, betrayal, and doubt. You need this breather, because when the final act kicks into gear, it feels earned, like you've been climbing a long hill and are now rocketing down the other side. Also, major applause for the way time manipulation is handled. There are flashbacks, parallel timelines, and even a few fake-out moments where the editing purposely misleads you. And it's done so smoothly you never feel lost. Instead, you're piecing the puzzle together, leaning forward, trying to outguess the film. The editors trust the audience to keep up, and that makes the whole experience more exciting. And here's something fun. The editing even plays tricks on your emotions. In some scenes, the pace ramps up alongside the character's panic, rapid cuts, heartbeat-like sound effects, jumpy camera moves, so you start feeling anxious too. Then, in contrast, there are moments when everything slows, the cuts stretch out, and you're left holding your breath, waiting for the hammer to drop. This rhythm shapes how you experience the story on a gut level. So no, this isn't a movie that drifts or fumbles its way to the big finale. The editing here is like the film's secret weapon, quietly crafting tension, guiding your emotions, making sure you're locked in for every second of the ride. Want me to break down a specific sequence and show how the editing pulls off its magic moment by moment? Just say the word. Soundtrack and score: Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright friends, let's tune our ears and dive into one of the sneakiest, yet most powerful forces driving this movie: the music. Because in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, the soundtrack and score don't just accompany the action, they supercharge it. They wrap around every moment, slipping under your skin, making you feel the tension, the triumph, the heartbreak, even when you don't consciously realize it. Let's start with the main theme. Yes, you know the one, that iconic Dididea Mission Impossible riff. But in this film, it's not just slapped on for nostalgia. Oh no, the composer plays with it, stretches it, reshapes it. In moments of creeping suspense, the theme slows to a whisper, transformed into eerie piano notes or delicate strings, dripping with tension. During big action scenes, it's blasted in full orchestral glory, roaring through the speakers like a battle cry. And sometimes it's yanked away entirely, replaced by silence, leaving you dangling in midair, heart pounding, waiting for the next beat to drop. The recurring motifs are another treat. There's a subtle melody tied to Ethan's personal journey, a bittersweet, almost melancholic line that weaves in and out during his more vulnerable moments. You'll hear it when he's facing impossible choices, when he's doubting himself, when he's remembering the cost of his mission. It's a quiet musical reminder that beneath the stunts and explosions, this is a man carrying an enormous emotional weight. Now the action sequences. Oh, the score goes wild here. We're talking thunderous percussion, jagged electronic beats, surging strings, all layered together in a relentless, driving rhythm that mirrors the heart-racing pace on screen. But what's brilliant is how the composer knows when to pull back. There's a heist sequence, for example, where instead of blasting you with big, dramatic music, the score slips into a sly, minimalist groove, tapping into the tension of every tiny movement, every held breath, every nervous glance. It's slick, it's cool, and it's way more effective than just throwing noise at you. And let's not forget the use of silence. Some of the most gripping moments come when the music cuts out entirely. No pounding drums, no soaring strings, just the raw sounds of footsteps, breathing, or the faint hum of a ticking clock. It's like the composer is daring you to lean in, to fill in the tension yourself. One standout scene features Ethan hanging by a thread literally, over a deadly drop, and the soundtrack goes dead quiet. Just the creak of the rope, the rasp of his breath, the faintest wind. You're holding your breath right alongside him. What really makes the score shine is how seamlessly it blends with the storytelling. It never feels like the music is shouting at you, never overpowering the emotion on screen. Instead, it shapes the emotion, guiding you through the highs and lows, the fear and the triumph. Whether it's subtle background tension or full-blown heroic fanfare, the soundtrack knows exactly when to step forward and when to fade into the shadows. And oh, there's even a cheeky little musical callback buried in the score for longtime fans. A nod to a past Mission Impossible film that pops up just when you least expect it. It's the kind of detail that makes you grin if you catch it. A little musical Easter egg tucked inside the larger soundscape. Want me to break down the most epic musical moment in the movie and explain how the score and scenes sync up? Just let me know. Themes and messages: Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright friends, hold on tight because we're about to dive into the heart of the film. The themes and messages. While this might be a blockbuster filled with insane stunts and edge-of-your-seat action, it's also so much more than that. Beneath all the explosions, the daring rescues, and the endless twists, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is about some truly powerful ideas that stick with you long after the credits roll. Let's start with the cost of duty and sacrifice. Ethan Hunt has always been a man of duty, but this film takes it to a whole new level. We see him grappling with the weight of his choices, wondering whether the mission is worth the cost. And not just for himself, but for those around him. It's easy to forget, with all the running and fighting, that this is a guy who's been through unimaginable losses. And in this film, the emotional toll of his lifestyle is front and center. The theme of self-sacrifice, the idea that saving the world sometimes means losing pieces of yourself, or even losing the people you love, is deeply felt. There's no easy resolution here. There's no, "I saved the day, and now everything's great." Instead, we're left with the raw reality of what it means to be a hero. Then there's the theme of trust and betrayal. This is something the Mission Impossible franchise has always touched on. But here, it's taken to a new level. The film does an incredible job of twisting this theme, constantly playing with your expectations about who's trustworthy and who's hiding a secret. Is the team really all on the same page? Can Ethan trust those closest to him? Or is someone in his inner circle pulling the strings? It keeps you guessing, and in the end, it leaves you with this unsettling question. Is trust even possible in a world so full of deception? It's a theme that gets under your skin, especially as the film closes on a note that leaves you wondering just how much you can ever really trust someone, even yourself. Now here's where things get really juicy: the blurred lines between right and wrong. The movie tackles the idea that in high-stakes situations, morality can get a little fuzzy. There are no perfect answers. The film doesn't present a clear good versus evil dynamic. Instead, it's more about choices, shades of gray, and the moral dilemmas that arise when you're forced to make life and death decisions. Ethan and his team are constantly faced with impossible choices, and every time they think they're on the right track, something else comes up that challenges their values. This theme is woven throughout the narrative, especially in the final act, where you're left questioning whether the greater good is worth the personal cost. And then there's the idea of legacy. Ethan has been in this game for decades now, and in this film, he begins to wonder what kind of legacy he's building. What does it all mean? Is he just a tool for global politics, or does he stand for something bigger? The film asks whether heroes can ever truly leave a legacy behind when their work is so covert, so thankless. But more importantly, it challenges the idea of whether anyone can leave a legacy in a world that moves so fast and changes so drastically. This theme resonates deeply as Ethan's decisions force him to confront what he'll leave behind, and whether the people he's protected will ever remember the sacrifices he's made. Let's not overlook the theme of survival versus living. The entire plot is driven by survival. But what's the point of surviving if you're not truly living? This theme crops up again and again, especially as Ethan watches others make choices that allow them to live in the moment, find joy, or at least grasp some sense of normalcy. Ethan, though, is a man whose whole existence is defined by constant danger, impossible choices, and a never-ending need to protect others. The film spends a lot of time contrasting his life with those around him, who've managed to carve out some form of happiness, leaving Ethan to wonder, does he have a choice in the matter? Or is he doomed to live only in the shadows of survival? And here's a big one: the tension between individuality and teamwork. In a movie about a spy team, you'd think the theme of teamwork would be pretty obvious. But in the final reckoning, it's handled in a unique way. Ethan has always been the lone wolf, but this time, he faces the consequences of being too independent. As the story unfolds, he must learn to trust his team in ways he hasn't before. He has to rely on them, open up to them, and allow them to carry part of the burden. This theme resonates not just for Ethan, but for all the characters. There's a real message about the power of relying on others, especially when the stakes are too high for any one person to carry alone. All these themes, they're not shoved in your face, folks. They don't feel forced. Instead, they're integrated into the action and character arcs, blending with the tension, the twists, and the emotional beats. This film is one of those rare action-packed experiences that leaves you with a lot to chew on, long after you've finished watching. It's a roller coaster ride with an emotional depth that demands reflection. And the best part? It never forgets to entertain while it's asking you to think. Visual effects and CGI Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning 2025. Alright, time to talk about the eye candy. The mind-blowing visual effects that make Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning an absolute visual feast. Let's get this straight. The visual effects in this film don't just exist to wow you, although trust me, they do that plenty. They serve the story, they immerse you in the action, and they amplify the world Ethan Hunt inhabits. So let's break it down, starting with the most important question. Do the visual effects blend naturally with the world? Oh, absolutely. This isn't a film where CGI is waving its hand in the background saying, "Look at me." No, no, no. The digital magic here is subtle. It's designed to feel like part of the real world, enhancing the physical reality without drawing attention to itself. Take the action sequences. When you see Ethan dangling from the side of a plane, yes, there's one of those heart-stopping moments in this film. No spoilers. You don't question the reality of it for a second. The CGI feels like a natural extension of the real stunt work that was clearly done on set. But it's that perfect blend of practical and digital that tricks your mind into thinking, this could be real. And this fusion isn't just for stunts. It's embedded in the way the world around the characters is constructed, cities, landscapes, even some of the high-tech gadgets that have a distinctly sci-fi feel. You never feel like you're looking at something that couldn't exist, even though you know that's not true. Speaking of gadgets and high-tech visuals, the digital set extensions in the movie are fantastic. Think sleek, futuristic headquarters, towering skyscrapers, and cutting-edge surveillance tech. These aren't just cool-looking elements to make the movie techy. They integrate seamlessly into the world building, creating a universe that feels alive and expansive. The digital effects here are used with such purpose. They enhance immersion by showcasing a world that's dangerous, thrilling, and complex. For example, there's a sequence where the team infiltrates a highly fortified compound. The exterior shots of the compound are so beautifully designed, blending real locations with digital enhancements, that you feel like you're stepping into a world where the line between reality and technology has blurred. But let's talk about those practical effects for a minute, because they shine in this film. There's no shortage of heart-stopping real-world stunts. The movie is packed with jaw-dropping moments that could only have been achieved with pure physicality. Car chases? Real. High-speed pursuits? Real. Hand-to-hand combat? Real. This is a film that still honors the tradition of getting as much of the action as possible on camera, and it shows. The practical effects here have such a raw energy. You can feel the intensity in every punch, every high-speed chase, every inch of concrete that's smashed under tires. These moments keep the movie grounded in reality, even when the CGI takes over. Now, don't get me wrong, the digital effects are certainly showstoppers. There's one scene where Ethan and his team find themselves in a fully digitized, virtual world, and the visual effects are so well executed that it's like stepping into a fever dream. Every line of code pulses with life, turning an abstract concept into something vibrant and real. These moments are out of this world in the best possible way, adding layers of complexity to the film's visual identity. But it's never about, hey, look at this cool CGI. It's about enhancing the story and deepening the immersion. In terms of execution, there's this gorgeous balance of practical and digital. Take, for example, a sequence where the team has to scale a dangerous cliffside. The real-life shots of them climbing are intense, but once they reach a certain height, the CGI does the heavy lifting, subtly enhancing the environment, adding dangerous elements, and ensuring the safety of the actors while maintaining that level of realism. The transitions between practical and digital effects are nearly imperceptible, and that's the sweet spot. It's not here's a CGI explosion, or look at this crazy digital creature. Instead, it's, whoa, that just happened, and I didn't even see the wires. And then, of course, there's the visual spectacle of the explosions, the stunts, and the massive mind-bending chases. But the key here is that they're not just there to make you say wow. They are integral to the film's narrative. Each digital effect has a purpose, either ramping up the intensity of an action sequence or underlining a crucial plot point. Whether it's a chase through a futuristic cityscape or a high-stakes infiltration where every corner is lined with high-tech security, the CGI works its magic to take you deeper into the story. It's like the effects are a silent character of their own, shaping how you experience each scene. But here's where the real genius comes in. The film doesn't lean too hard on the visual effects. It knows when to pull back and let the practical stunts and the performances speak for themselves. It's a delicate dance of pushing the limits of what's possible without losing sight of what's real. In the end, what makes the visual effects in The Final Reckoning stand out isn't just their quality, it's their purpose. They serve the film, not the other way around. Whether it's creating heart-stopping, mind-bending action, or enhancing a moment of pure emotion, the visual effects are integrated so naturally into the story that they just feel like part of the world. And that's the sign of some truly spectacular CGI and VFX work. It doesn't distract. It deepens your connection to the world, making the impossible feel possible, without ever breaking the illusion. Dialogue and script, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright, let's talk about the words in Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. You'd think a film this action-packed would rely on explosions, fight scenes, and high-speed chases to steal the show. But nope, there's something much deeper going on here. It's the dialogue. The script doesn't just move the plot forward, it adds layers of intrigue, emotion, and yes, even humor. The writing doesn't hold back, and every word feels like it's been carefully crafted to either increase the tension or give you a much-needed moment of release. Let's start with the wit. There's a certain sharpness to the exchanges between characters, especially between Ethan and his team. One moment, you're holding your breath as they plan a risky infiltration, and the next, someone cracks a joke, easing the tension without ever undermining the gravity of the situation. It's the kind of humor that feels natural, like these characters have spent years together, making light of the chaos around them. It's not forced, it's earned. And trust me, those one-liners? You'll be quoting them long after the movie ends. There's an effortlessly cool vibe in the script that makes even the smallest exchanges feel memorable. Then there's the emotional weight of the dialogue. Sure, you're here for the action, but the film doesn't forget that these are real people with complex motivations and inner struggles. The dialogue gets deep at times, especially when Ethan faces tough choices. There's a line where he says, "We don't get to choose our battles, but we can choose how we fight them." It's one of those quiet, impactful moments that sticks with you long after the scene has passed. It's not just a cool line. It encapsulates the entire internal struggle Ethan has been wrestling with throughout the film. The script does a beautiful job of weaving these moments of emotional depth between all the high-octane action, showing you that there's more to this mission than just taking down bad guys. The stakes are often laid out in the dialogue, and every conversation feels like it's pushing towards something bigger. There's a particularly intense scene where a villain challenges Ethan, and instead of a typical action movie retort, Ethan responds with something loaded with regret. "I'm not here to save the world, just the people I can." That's the heart of the film. It's not about global domination or flashy speeches. It's about personal sacrifice, trust, and loyalty. The lines aren't just written to make you cheer for the hero. They're written to make you feel what he's going through, to understand the weight of his choices. But don't think it's all serious business. The dialogue also knows when to lean into action movie bravado. There's a moment where Ethan's caught in a seemingly impossible situation, and with a sly grin he says, "Well, it's now or never." It's a small line, but it lands perfectly, reminding you that even when everything is falling apart, Ethan's resolve is unshakable. The script knows when to dial up the stakes, but also when to give you that grin and bear it moment of confidence. Of course, there are some standout lines that will have you thinking long after you've left the theater. A particularly chilling exchange between the villain and Ethan goes like this. "Villain, you think you can stop me?" Ethan, "No, but I can make you wish I had." The simplicity and coldness of that line is what makes it so effective. It doesn't need to be a long monologue. It just cuts straight to the heart of the conflict. And there are several moments like this throughout the film, where the script knows how to hit you with a punch, whether it's through a devastating admission or a perfectly timed quip. What's also impressive is how the script balances character moments with plot progression. It's not just about advancing the mission, it's about understanding what's at stake for each person involved. When the team talks about their motivations, fears, and dreams, you don't feel like they're just saying words for the sake of exposition. You get a glimpse into who they really are, what they care about, and what drives them. Even minor characters get these moments of clarity, giving them an emotional depth that you don't always expect in a high-octane thriller like this. Then there's the villain's dialogue. In a lot of action films, the antagonist's lines are predictable, and you could almost write them yourself. But here, the villain's words are much more than just threats. They're philosophical, almost poetic in a twisted way. They make you think, especially when they start talking about the cost of loyalty and the morality of Ethan's choices. It's not just about evil plans. It's about forcing Ethan to question his own mission, his alliances, and the true cost of saving the world. So while you're sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for the next big action set piece, don't forget to pay attention to the dialogue. The script is smart, packed with meaningful exchanges, razor-sharp wit, and moments that give the film emotional weight. It's a testament to how well-crafted dialogue can turn a typical action film into something with lasting impact. The lines don't just come and go. They stay with you, offering just the right balance of humor, insight, and emotional punch. Genre execution: Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright folks, let's talk about how Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning absolutely nails its genre, while also flipping some conventions on their heads. If you've seen any of the previous Mission Impossible films, you know this franchise has a signature style: high-stakes action, heart-stopping chases, impossible missions. But this one? Oh, it takes that formula, shakes it up, and gives it a little extra something special. Let's start with the action. This is the bread and butter of any spy thriller, right? And Mission Impossible doesn't disappoint. You've got all the classic elements: breathtaking stunts, edge-of-your-seat fight sequences, and daring heists that seem designed to defy physics. But here's where the film starts to subvert genre expectations. Instead of leaning solely on grandiose action for action's sake, the filmmakers have used it to push forward the story. You know, those moments where the bad guys must be stopped, or the hero must somehow survive an explosion. The action scenes in this film aren't just about looking cool. They mean something. Every daring leap, every narrow escape, every crash is tied to the stakes and emotional beats. It's the difference between seeing a fight scene as spectacle and seeing it as a moment of personal triumph or failure. Now, what's interesting is that the film doesn't just rely on fast-paced sequences to keep you engaged. It knows when to pull back and let the suspense build. This is where the film plays with suspense in a way that feels fresh for the genre. Sure, you get your typical pulse-racing chases through busy city streets, but some of the most intense moments? They happen in the quietest settings. Think about a heist sequence where Ethan's team is sneaking through a heavily guarded facility, not with explosions and gunfire, but with subtle moves, whispered commands, and heart-pounding tension. This is the kind of slow-burn suspense that Mission Impossible usually doesn't play with, but in The Final Reckoning, it works wonders. It's a reminder that suspense doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it's the quiet moments that make you sweat the most. But it's not all serious business. Mission Impossible films are known for their humor, and this one has some great zingers. The sharp wit of Ethan's crew provides those moments where you can finally take a breath and laugh between the tense sequences. The humor doesn't feel forced, though. It's not there to break the tension just for the sake of it. It's a natural outgrowth of the camaraderie among Ethan and his team. They've been through so much together that these moments of levity actually serve to deepen their bond. And hey, there's a moment where someone cracks a joke in the middle of a high-speed chase, and it hits just the right note. You're laughing, but you also realize that it's the kind of stress-relieving humor you'd expect from a team that's lived through countless life-and-death situations. It's classic Mission Impossible but elevated. What really stands out in this film, though, is how it balances drama with everything else. The deeper emotional stakes of Ethan's character and the relationships within the team really take center stage in a way that feels almost new for the franchise. There's less emphasis on global stakes and more focus on personal sacrifice. The film isn't afraid to slow down and let its characters breathe. You get to see their vulnerabilities, their doubts, and the cost of the dangerous life they've chosen. These moments of introspection give the film an emotional depth that sets it apart from typical action flicks that rely purely on the physical. And let's talk about the villain. This is where the film both sticks to and subverts the genre. Sure, you've got a villain with grand world-altering schemes, but The Final Reckoning takes it further. The antagonist's motivations aren't just rooted in a desire for power or wealth. No, this villain has a twisted sense of justice, and their ideology actually forces Ethan to grapple with some serious moral dilemmas. The villain's dialogue challenges Ethan on a philosophical level, something we don't often see in action films, where the bad guys are typically just plot devices. It makes the battle feel more layered and complex. You're not just rooting for Ethan because he's the hero. You're rooting for him because he's fighting for something greater than just victory, his own moral compass. In terms of genre conventions, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning definitely knows what works, but it's not afraid to break the mold either. The film stays true to the franchise's roots by delivering high-octane action and suspense, but it also introduces fresh elements, like those slower, more emotionally driven moments. It balances the thrills with heartfelt drama, and it knows when to slow down for a more intimate moment, something you don't always get from a film of this genre. So what do we have here? A film that delivers on everything you expect from an action-packed spy thriller, but with just enough surprises to keep you on your toes. The action, suspense, humor, and drama blend together in perfect harmony, with each element enhancing the others. The film plays by the genre's rules, but doesn't hesitate to push the boundaries, proving that even the most iconic franchises can evolve and find new ways to surprise their audiences. Social and cultural commentary. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright, let's dive into the deeper side of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. While you're likely here for the explosive stunts and pulse-pounding action, this film doesn't shy away from diving into some contemporary issues, politics, and cultural reflections that are far more complex than you might expect from a franchise of this scale. Trust me, there's more going on here than just high-flying missions and gadget-filled heists. One of the film's most subtle yet impactful themes is its exploration of surveillance and privacy in the digital age. With the rise of AI, big data, and increasingly sophisticated monitoring systems, this film feels eerily prescient. The villain's grand scheme is all about harnessing the power of these tools to create a surveillance state, and it raises serious questions about the balance between security and personal freedom. What happens when a society sacrifices privacy for the sake of safety? How far can you push the idea of protecting the greater good before it starts infringing on personal liberties? It's a theme that feels right out of today's headlines, but the film never preaches. Instead, it lets the tension build naturally through the plot and the moral dilemmas faced by the characters. Ethan's team is not just trying to stop an evil genius. They're up against the very idea of control through technology, a force that feels all too real in our world today. And let's not forget the global scale of the conflict. This isn't just a localized threat. It's something that could impact entire governments, entire societies. The film touches on the complex dynamics of international relations, particularly when it comes to espionage. The lines between good and bad are blurred, and it's not just about who the good guys are, but what is considered good. There are moments when Ethan is forced to question his loyalty to his country, his team, and even his own mission. The movie doesn't just make a statement about the personal stakes of being a spy. It highlights the moral gray areas inherent in global politics. We're talking about alliances that can shift in an instant, and decisions that might be right in the short term, but disastrous in the long run. It's a commentary on how quickly the game of global power can turn, especially when everyone is operating in the shadows. But it's not all doom and gloom. The film also touches on technology's role in human connection. In a world where so much is mediated through screens and digital platforms, The Final Reckoning explores what it means to truly connect with others in such an isolating environment. Ethan's relationships with his team, and the people closest to him, are at the heart of this story. It's not just about saving the world. It's about saving what's left of humanity in a world that's increasingly disconnected. The interpersonal dynamics, the trust, betrayal, and camaraderie, play out against the backdrop of a world that's obsessed with control, and the film does a fantastic job showing that, at its core, this is a story about humanity's struggle to stay connected in an ever more fragmented world. Sure, the gadgets and tech are cool, But the film makes a point that personal relationships and emotional bonds are what ultimately matter. On a more cultural level, the film also looks at heroism in the modern world. Ethan Hunt has always been the quintessential action hero, but the final reckoning explores what heroism really means in a time when everyone's motives are under constant scrutiny. The idea of the lone wolf hero is challenged, as we see Ethan forced to confront the costs of his choices, both personally and globally. In today's world, where every move is analyzed, every decision can have a far-reaching consequence, the traditional idea of the hero, who always saves the day with a triumphant smile, doesn't quite hold up. Ethan's character and his team are much more morally complex than simple action movie heroes. They embody the uncertainty of modern-day figures who make difficult choices in a world where nothing is ever truly black and white. The film asks, can you be a hero if you're constantly questioning the very system you're trying to save? It's a nod to the modern disillusionment with traditional notions of heroism. Finally, the movie doesn't shy away from globalization and the interconnectedness of the world today. The plot takes us to diverse locations across the globe, from high-tech cities to isolated, ancient places. In each new setting, we see how international politics, cultural differences, and technological advances shape people's lives. The film subtly weaves in the idea that in a world where information moves faster than ever and borders are less and less significant, the stakes are higher. The idea of a single individual making a difference feels more complicated, as each choice affects a network of interconnected lives in a much larger, more global system. So, how does Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning handle these complex topics? The beauty of it is that it doesn't hit you over the head with its commentary. It doesn't stop to lecture or shove political statements down your throat. Instead, the themes are woven naturally into the fabric of the story, with every action scene, every plot twist, and every character choice subtly pushing these ideas to the forefront. The film keeps you engaged in the action while making you think about the bigger picture, creating a balance between popcorn thrills and thoughtful reflection. At the end of the day, The Final Reckoning makes it clear that even in a world dominated by technology and global conflicts, the real battle is still fought over values: trust, loyalty, freedom, and humanity itself. Audience engagement: Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning 2025. Alright folks, if you're wondering whether Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning will have you on the edge of your seat, wiping away tears, or gasping for air, buckle up, because this film knows how to play with your emotions, and it does so in the best way possible. It's not just about explosions and high-speed chases. This movie digs into that deep, visceral connection with its audience, making sure that every moment packs a punch, whether it's thrilling, heart-pounding, or emotionally gut-wrenching. First off, let's talk about excitement. From the get-go, The Final Reckoning is a pulse-racing experience. The film's pacing is designed to keep you on your toes, constantly shifting between high-stakes action and the slower, tension-building moments that get under your skin. Every chase sequence, every fight, every twist in the plot has been crafted to make you feel like you're in the middle of the action. You're not just watching Ethan Hunt dodge bullets and scale buildings. You're in it with him, your heart pounding in sync with his every move. There's a chase sequence that's so intense, you might find yourself leaning forward, urging the characters to move faster. And when the dust settles, you'll realize you've been holding your breath the whole time. It's thrilling, and it's designed to make you feel like you've just been on the ride of your life. But here's the thing, it's not just about the thrills. The film knows when to slow down, giving the audience moments of genuine emotion that hit harder than a punch to the gut. Ethan, our ever-intrepid hero, is put through a series of personal trials that dig deep into his character. And with those trials come moments of vulnerability that humanize him in ways that resonate with audiences on a deeper level. When he's facing impossible choices, when his team is in danger, or when he's forced to confront the emotional cost of his mission, the audience can't help but feel it. It's not just about saving the world, it's about the personal stakes and the weight of responsibility. There's a quiet scene, for example, where Ethan reflects on the people he's lost, the cost of his decisions, and it's gut-wrenching. You can hear a pin drop in the theater as the character grapples with his own mortality and the lives caught in the crossfire. It's a moment of reflection that makes you take a pause. And when the action picks back up, it's even more impactful because of it. And let's not forget the shock value. This film has some twists that will make you jump out of your seat. There are moments where everything you think you know is turned upside down. And suddenly, nothing is as it seemed. These plot turns don't just shock for the sake of shocking. They add depth to the story, pushing the characters into new moral dilemmas that make you question everything. You'll be talking about these moments long after the credits roll. Jaw-dropping revelations and cliffhangers will have you thinking, wait, did they just do that? It's the kind of movie that makes you want to immediately go back and watch it again, just to catch the little details you missed on the first pass. The film also knows how to play with laughter and lightheartedness, using humor to provide relief from the tension. You know those moments in action movies where the tension becomes so thick you need a breather? The Final Reckoning gives you that breath of fresh air in the form of quick, sharp wit from the team. There's a delightful dynamic between Ethan and his team members, especially in the more tense scenes, where they toss off lines that'll make you smile, even laugh out loud. The humor feels natural, not forced, and it gives you a chance to breathe before the action picks up again. It's the perfect balance. Just when you think you can't take any more intensity, the film knows exactly when to throw in a quip that reminds you, hey, we're in this together, and we can still laugh through the chaos. The emotional and intellectual depth of the story makes it prime for discussion and reflection long after the movie ends. It doesn't just leave you with an adrenaline high, it leaves you with something to think about. Whether it's the moral dilemmas the characters face or the themes of trust, loyalty, and freedom, the film opens up conversations about the cost of heroism and the personal sacrifices involved in saving the world. It invites you to question how far you would go for the greater good and what you would sacrifice to protect those you love. The relationships between the characters, particularly Ethan and his team, will have you thinking about what makes a true team, not just the stunts and action, but the bonds that form under the pressure. And don't be surprised if, after the film ends, you're already planning to see it again. The movie is layered with moments that demand repeat viewings. Every chase, every fight, every emotional beat has something new to discover on a second or third watch. From the subtle foreshadowing to the tiny character details that get lost in the first wave of action. The Final Reckoning is the kind of movie you can come back to and find something new every time. In the end, this movie doesn't just take you on a thrill ride. It engages you. It pulls you into its world, makes you feel for its characters, and leaves you with a lingering sense of awe and reflection. Whether you're laughing, gasping, or emotionally wrecked, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning knows exactly how to play with your emotions, keeping you invested from the first second to the last. This isn't just a film, it's an experience that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Comparisons to similar films: Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Alright, let's step back and look at Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning in the context of everything else that's come before it. We're talking about a franchise that's been pushing the envelope for over 2 decades, constantly raising the stakes, refining the formula, and delivering iconic action sequences that have become legendary. But here's the thing. The Final Reckoning isn't just another chapter in the series. It's a bold evolution that challenges not only the conventions of the Mission Impossible films but the spy genre as a whole. It's the Final Reckoning, after all, and it doesn't go quietly into the night. When you compare this film to earlier entries in the series, there's a clear shift. Sure, you've got all the usual elements: high-stakes espionage, pulse-pounding action, and those death-defying stunts that make you question if Tom Cruise is actually part superhero. But The Final Reckoning takes those familiar building blocks and reinvents them, blending them with a deeper emotional core and a more introspective look at the toll this life takes on its characters. It's a movie that's just as much about Ethan Hunt's personal journey as it is about saving the world. We've seen moments of vulnerability from Ethan in the past, but this film dives deeper into his psyche, reflecting on the sacrifices, the cost of heroism, and the weight of every decision. the action is still there, but it's now accompanied by a heavy emotional punch that really makes you stop and think. In terms of the broader spy genre, this film does something really interesting. Yes, it delivers the big action beats we expect, the heists, the infiltrations, the high-speed chases, but it does so with an air of grittiness and intensity that makes it feel more grounded than a lot of its counterparts. We've all seen the sleek, polished, hyper-glamorous spy thrillers out there. Think of the James Bond movies, with their high-tech gadgets and luxurious settings. The Final Reckoning, on the other hand, doesn't shy away from humanizing its characters. It brings the espionage world down to earth, showing the ugly side of the life that these characters have chosen. There's a rawness to this film that isn't always present in the genre, a feeling that nothing, not even the most perfectly executed mission, is ever without consequence. As for comparisons within the Mission Impossible franchise itself, this film raises the bar in ways we haven't seen before. Previous installments have explored themes of loyalty, trust, and sacrifice, but The Final Reckoning takes all of that and compounds it. The stakes feel personal, the tension is palpable, and the action feels louder and more intense than ever. This is a movie that blends the spectacle with the intimate in a way that feels seamless. Whereas earlier films in the series would often prioritize set pieces and jaw-dropping stunts, this one places just as much emphasis on the emotional beats, giving us time to breathe and really feel what's at stake. That said, the stunts, oh, they're still there, and they're even bigger and more impressive than anything we've seen before. Now, if we broaden the lens to look at the director's filmography, The Final Reckoning fits right in with the director's signature style. But there's a noticeable shift in tone here. Fans of the director's earlier work will recognize the crisp, clean direction, the attention to detail in every frame, and the impeccable pacing. But here, there's an added layer of emotional resonance that wasn't as prevalent in some of his earlier films. This isn't just about spectacle. This is about crafting an experience that lingers with you long after the film ends. There's a careful balance of action, drama, and suspense that feels almost poetic in its execution. The director hasn't abandoned the visual flair he's known for, but he's paired it with a deeper thematic focus that elevates the film above the typical action fare. In terms of its place within the larger action genre, The Final Reckoning is a standout. It's not just another formulaic blockbuster. It's a film that challenges the expectations of the audience, blending the thrills of an action movie with the complexities of its characters and the personal stakes at play. It's the kind of film that'll make you reconsider what the genre can be, a mix of heart, intelligence, and spectacle. There are plenty of action-packed films out there, but The Final Reckoning does something rare. It makes you feel. In the end, while it might share DNA with its predecessors and similar films in the genre, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning pushes the boundaries. It's a unique blend of familiar and new, of high-octane thrills and heartfelt emotion. This isn't just about a hero saving the world. It's about a man coming to terms with his own limitations and finding meaning in a life that's never been easy. And honestly, that's what makes it stand out in a crowded field of action movies. Symbolism and metaphors, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, 2025. Beneath the slick action, the mind-bending stunts, and the pulse-pounding chases of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, lies a deeper web of symbolism and metaphors that enrich the storytelling and add complexity to what at first might seem like just another spy thriller. This is the kind of movie where the visuals speak just as loudly as the dialogue, where the set design, character choices, and even the smallest details all serve a greater thematic purpose. Let's dive into some of the most intriguing symbols and metaphors that are woven into this film, and see how they amplify the story's emotional and philosophical undercurrents. First up, let's talk about the rope. There's a moment in the movie where Ethan finds himself dangling from a seemingly impossible height, clinging to a rope for dear life. It's one of those classic action sequences where the stakes are sky-high, literally. But this rope isn't just a plot device. It's a symbol of his connection to the mission, to the team, and to the precarious balance between life and death. The rope represents control and fragility all at once. It's what keeps him grounded, but it's also the thing that could snap at any moment, plunging him into oblivion. It's a metaphor for Ethan's entire existence. Always on the edge, always in danger, and yet still holding on to some semblance of purpose. The visual of him hanging there is also a reminder of how isolated he often feels in his role. As the rope sways in the wind, it mirrors Ethan's own internal turmoil, tethered to a dangerous life, but never fully able to escape it. Then there's the mirror imagery that pops up throughout the film. Mirrors appear at several key points, often reflecting Ethan's face, sometimes distorted, sometimes whole, and always offering a glimpse into the character's inner conflict. This is no accident. The mirror is a classic symbol of self-reflection, but in the final reckoning, it's also a window into Ethan's fractured identity. Who is he really? A hero? A man doomed by the choices of his past? The mirrored surfaces, whether in an office building, a dusty desert hideout, or even a high-tech surveillance facility, underscore the idea that Ethan is constantly at odds with himself. These reflective surfaces invite the audience to question who he truly is beneath the mask of the super spy. The film uses mirrors not only as a visual tool, but as a metaphor for the duality of Ethan's character, torn between his loyalty to the mission and his need for personal redemption. Time is another fascinating metaphor at play here. The concept of time, its passage, its manipulation, its loss, is explored in multiple ways throughout the film. From the ticking countdowns during high-stakes operations to the ever-looming pressure of decisions that have to be made in split seconds, time is presented as both a resource and an enemy. There's one particularly poignant scene where Ethan makes a decision that directly impacts his team, and the decision is driven by the awareness of time running out. Here, time isn't just a practical concern, it's a force that shapes the characters' lives. It's a constant reminder that nothing lasts forever, that every mission, every sacrifice, every action is done with the awareness that time is slipping away. It's a metaphor for the fleeting nature of life itself, and the ever-present knowledge that every choice is a step closer to an inevitable conclusion. Let's not forget the motif of the mask, something that's been part of the Mission Impossible franchise from the very beginning. But in this movie, it's not just about the disguises or hidden identities. It's about the idea of false facades and self-deception. Throughout the film, there are moments where the characters literally wear masks to infiltrate enemy territories. But there's also the metaphorical mask that each character wears to protect themselves from the harsh truths of their lives. Ethan wears his mask as the unstoppable hero, but beneath that, he's constantly grappling with guilt, loss, and the idea of human fallibility. The more the film unfolds, the more these masks start to crack, revealing the real people behind the roles they play. This theme ties in perfectly with the larger story arc about identity, self-awareness, and the masks we all wear in our personal and professional lives. One of the most subtle yet powerful metaphors in the final reckoning is the journey motif. Yes, there are literal journeys, from city to city, from mission to mission, but there's also a deeper philosophical journey at play. Ethan is not only on a physical journey, but a spiritual one, as he searches for answers about his place in the world and the toll his actions have taken on his soul. The constant travel between diverse locations, the serene countryside, the urban chaos, the underground bunkers, reflects Ethan's internal voyage as he grapples with the choices he's made and the man he has become. The settings themselves act as milestones on this journey, each representing a stage in his emotional growth, or perhaps more accurately, his search for redemption. Lastly, there's the idea of the chess game, which plays out in the background of the film, particularly in the way the characters strategize and outmaneuver their enemies. Chess as a metaphor in the movie isn't just about the tactical moves, it's about the moral choices each character faces. Every move in the chess game represents a moment of moral decision, a crossroads where they have to choose between what's easy and what's right. The high-level maneuvers, the sacrifices made, and the ultimate checkmate are all part of this larger metaphor about life's choices and the balance between personal gain and the greater good. All of these symbols and metaphors don't just enhance the storytelling. They give the film a deeper emotional resonance that makes it stand out from the usual action fare. These visual cues and layered meanings elevate the final reckoning from a typical spy movie into something far more thought-provoking. It's a film that invites you to not just watch, but to reflect on the choices these characters make and the larger themes about identity, time, sacrifice, and redemption that echo throughout. Every decision, every moment of suspense, is woven into this fabric of metaphorical meaning, creating a rich, textured story that stays with you long after the credits roll. Franchise or historical context: Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, 2025. In the sprawling world of the Mission Impossible franchise, each entry has been a puzzle piece, adding a layer of complexity to the overarching narrative. But the Final Reckoning isn't just another cog in the machine. It's a grand finale that ties together all the threads of the previous films, while simultaneously redefining what the franchise is all about. This film doesn't just lean on its established lore. It deepens it, expands it, and gives it a sense of emotional and thematic closure that makes it feel both like the end of a saga and the culmination of everything we've come to expect from the series. First, let's talk about Ethan Hunt. Over the course of the franchise, we've watched him evolve from a young, idealistic agent to a seasoned, battle-worn operative who's been through it all. But the Final Reckoning takes Ethan's character arc to new heights. This isn't just about action sequences or ticking time bombs anymore. This is about reconciliation. Ethan's journey to come to terms with the cost of his mission-driven life. The film explores how the choices he's made over the years have not only affected him, but also those closest to him. His relationships with his team, his allies, and even his enemies are all examined in ways we haven't seen before. This is the movie where Ethan confronts his past, faces his guilt, and finally takes responsibility for the emotional and physical toll his actions have had on the world around him. It's a culmination of everything that's been built up in the earlier films, a personal reckoning that aligns perfectly with the film's title. The franchise's long-standing theme of sacrifice is explored more deeply here, as we see the characters facing stakes that feel like they could truly destroy everything they've worked for. The finality of this movie hangs in the air, giving us a sense of weighty consequence. It's not just about the success or failure of a mission anymore. It's about the very nature of espionage and the personal costs that come with it. The stakes feel more emotional than ever, making it clear that this isn't just another mission to check off the list. This is the one that will define the future of the team, and more importantly, Ethan's legacy. And what about the franchise's famous supporting cast? Well, this is the film where every character we've met along the way gets their moment to shine. Benji, Luther, Ilsa, they're all here, playing a critical role in Ethan's journey, not just as sidekicks, but as people with their own stakes, their own personal arcs, and their own connections to the mission. Their involvement doesn't feel like mere fan service. It's a genuine part of the emotional payoff. This isn't just the story of Ethan Hunt. It's the story of the family he's built along the way, and the sacrifices they've made together. Every choice, every risk, feels like it has been earned, because we've been with these characters for so long. This film truly pays tribute to the team aspect of the series, which has always been at its core. On the larger scale of the franchise, The Final Reckoning also brings back some of the franchise's most memorable villains and conflicting organizations, giving us a sense of continuity while also shaking up the stakes. The face-off between good and evil isn't just about thwarting some nefarious plot anymore. It's about the blurred lines between the two. Some of the moral questions that have been hovering in the background of previous films, like the ethics of espionage, the personal sacrifices that come with loyalty, and the cost of justice, are front and center here, making for a story that feels both fresh and deeply rooted in the past. Looking at it from the historical context of the franchise itself, The Final Reckoning also feels like a reflection of how the spy genre, and action films in general, have evolved over the past couple of decades. What began as a slick, fast-paced thriller with gadgets and stunts has grown into something far more intricate, both in terms of character development and narrative complexity. The franchise's willingness to lean into emotional depth, rather than just flashy set pieces, is something that sets this film apart from its predecessors, and from others in the genre. It shows how Mission Impossible has grown and matured over the years, evolving from its original mission of impossible action to something that genuinely reflects the human side of its characters. It's not just about the impossible stunts anymore. It's about the emotional stakes behind those stunts. Finally, let's talk about the legacy of the franchise. The Final Reckoning doesn't just feel like the conclusion of a long-running series. It feels like the summation of everything Mission Impossible has stood for. It's got the heart-pounding action, the intricate plotting, the witty one-liners, and the high-stakes drama we've come to expect. But it's also a film that reflects on the longevity of the franchise, how it's evolved, how its characters have grown, and how it's influenced the landscape of action cinema as a whole. This film doesn't just complete the story of Ethan Hunt. It also adds another chapter to the larger legacy of the series itself, a legacy that's seen its share of evolution, surprises, and of course, incredible action. And as this era of Mission Impossible draws to a close, The Final Reckoning makes sure to give us not just a conclusion, but a rewarding payoff for the journey we've been on for all these years. Budget and box office. Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, 2025. When it comes to the financial landscape of Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, the numbers tell a story that matches the scale and spectacle of the film itself. It's no surprise that the production of this action-packed blockbuster had a hefty budget. With high-flying stunts, state-of-the-art special effects, and a world-spanning storyline, this film didn't cut corners. The budget here is reflective of the franchise's legacy of pushing the envelope in terms of both spectacle and technical excellence. We're talking a massive budget that falls in line with the previous entries, but with an added emphasis on giving audiences a sense of scale and grandeur that would resonate with the conclusion of this saga. It's clear that the film's budget was funneled into some jaw-dropping set pieces. The stunts, the high-speed chases, death-defying falls, and exploding buildings all look as polished as ever, with no corners cut. The CGI is stunning, seamlessly blending with the practical effects, allowing the impossible stunts to unfold without a hitch. The locations, too, are just as spectacular, transporting audiences to visually stunning locations around the globe. Whether it's the stark, dangerous landscapes of a remote desert hideout or the lavish interiors of a high-tech surveillance facility, the set design and locations feel like they were crafted with the kind of budget that allows for such lush detail. On the marketing side, the film's promotional blitz was nothing short of a masterclass. The campaign leveraged everything the Mission Impossible franchise is known for: the iconic stunts, the tense action sequences, and the high-stakes drama, and wrapped it all in a tight narrative of "this is the end." Teasers, trailers, and social media pushes made it clear that The Final Reckoning wasn't just another action flick. It was a grand finale. Fans were already emotionally invested in the franchise, so the marketing didn't need to work too hard to sell the idea of a final showdown. But it definitely sold it hard, showcasing the heart-pounding action that audiences have come to expect, while subtly hinting at the emotional weight of the film. By the time the film hit theaters, fans were primed for the experience. In terms of box office performance, The Final Reckoning absolutely crushed it. The opening weekend was a massive global hit, with strong ticket sales across both domestic and international markets. Audiences flocked to theaters, eager to see how the saga would end. The combination of a star-studded cast, stunning action sequences, and the nostalgia factor of knowing this was the end of Ethan Hunt's journey worked in its favor. There was a sense of event cinema surrounding the film, not just another sequel, but the grand conclusion of a long-running franchise that had become an integral part of the action movie landscape. In addition, audience reception played a huge role in boosting box office numbers. The film was met with mostly positive reviews, with critics praising the action, emotional depth, and the performances of the cast. Word of mouth, especially from longtime fans of the series, spread quickly, encouraging repeat viewings. Social media buzz amplified the anticipation, and fans of the franchise weren't shy about sharing their excitement. The film's emotional stakes, paired with the thrilling action, struck a chord with audiences looking for more than just mindless explosions. There was a real sense that this film mattered, both within the context of the Mission Impossible series and as a cultural moment. In terms of financial success, The Final Reckoning saw a return on investment that was well beyond expectations. Its global box office earnings were astronomical, making it not only a hit in terms of its production value, but also a clear financial win. The balance between artistic achievement and commercial viability here is impressive. It's clear that the franchise has found its sweet spot, where big budgets don't feel wasteful, but rather are invested into creating an experience that justifies the ticket price. However, it's worth noting that while the film did incredibly well at the box office, the question of whether it will continue the franchise's reign in the years to come is still up for debate. The box office numbers have definitely signaled a strong desire for a satisfying conclusion to this storyline. But with the final reckoning being framed as the end of Ethan Hunt's journey, there's also a sense of finality in the air. This could mark the end of an era for the Mission Impossible films, leaving fans with a sense of satisfaction, but also wondering what the future holds for the franchise. All in all, the film's budget, its savvy marketing, and the audience reception combined to make Mission Impossible the final reckoning a financial juggernaut, proving that even after so many films, the franchise still has the power to captivate global audiences. The stakes may be higher than ever, but the financial payoff matches that ambition, cementing this as one of the most successful and influential action franchises of all time. Where to watch Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning 2025. The question on every Mission Impossible fan's mind after hearing about The Final Reckoning is, where can I experience this? Well, hold on to your popcorn, because this is one movie you're going to want to see in the most immersive way possible. And luckily, the options are plentiful. First up, you've got the classic, tried-and-true theatrical release. This movie was made for the big screen, from the heart-stopping action sequences to the jaw-dropping stunts, and the grand scale of the story. It demands the kind of cinematic experience that only a theater can provide. Think IMAX or Dolby Cinema. The larger-than-life visuals, the pounding surround sound, and the immersive atmosphere will make you feel like you're right there alongside Ethan Hunt, dodging bullets and leaping across rooftops. The thrills hit harder when you're sitting in a packed theater, surrounded by an audience all reacting to the tension and excitement. The emotional beats? They'll resonate even more when shared with a crowd. Now, not everyone can make it to a theater, or maybe you're just not ready to leave your couch for the intense adrenaline rush of The Final Reckoning. No problem. The movie will inevitably land on streaming platforms for those who prefer to enjoy their action in the comfort of their own homes. When that day comes, the film will likely be available across major streaming services, like Paramount Plus, as it is part of the Mission Impossible franchise. For the ultimate experience, you'll still want to set up your home theater system, or at least get some serious sound going through your speakers. A 4K TV with HDR will ensure the visuals pop, and if you can crank up the sound to match the film's intense score and heart-racing action. For those of you who like to keep it simple, digital rental options will also be available, whether through platforms like Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, or Google Play Movies. This is a great choice if you want to watch on your own time and are content with a bit smaller screen experience. But just remember, if you're going this route, you're losing out on the massive spectacle that comes with a full theater or high-end home setup. Still, it's a convenient way to experience the thrills on your terms. If you're thinking of rewatching it, streaming or digital rental is your best bet. The beauty of these platforms is that you can pause, rewind, and relive those breathtaking moments whenever you want. Maybe you missed something during that insane heist scene, or you need to rewatch that emotional climax. Streaming gives you the freedom to hit play again at your own pace. But let's be real for a moment. If you're the type of person who thrives on action and suspense, and wants to feel every punch, every explosion, and every narrow escape, then seeing The Final Reckoning on the big screen is the way to go. There's something about those larger-than-life sequences that just can't be replicated at home, no matter how fancy your setup is. So, whether you're heading to the theater to witness the final chapter unfold on an IMAX screen, or waiting for the streaming release to watch in the comfort of your own space, there's no wrong way to experience the heart-pounding, action-packed ride that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Just make sure you find the best way to immerse yourself because this is one film that deserves your full attention. The stakes are high, and you won't want to miss a second.